our guests. So Karra, which is not me, the other Karra, and we always get confused everywhere we are. This is Karra with two R's, you will notice. So if you want to roll your R's when you mention other Karra, feel free to do so. I am not really good at doing that, so I won't. But you'll know if I'm saying Karra, I'm talking about the other Karra, not myself. Anyway, Karra is a licensed social worker from Buffalo, New York, a law school hopeful, which I am very excited about, and a nearly lifelong atheist. She is the only parent, mother to the best smelling, I am told, 12-year-old boy there is, and she has recovered from substance use disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder using secular, evidence-based approaches. She is also a 5-time consecutive fall excursion attendee, which is a pretty cool achievement to add as well. And we also have with us this evening Bradley, who also identifies as an atheist. He was diagnosed with high-risk B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia on November 17th, 2023, and has been undergoing chemotherapy ever since. He received at-home instruction following his diagnosis through most of February 2025, and he went back to school in February when he entered the maintenance phase of treatment, meaning that there is no detectable cancer. Yes, but he keeps receiving chemo prophylactically. He returned to sports and currently plays soccer and basketball, which is amazing. I cannot play either of those. He is a National Elementary Honor Society student and has maintained that status throughout treatment. Again, really freaking amazing. Good job. Last year, he earned high honor roll in 2 quarters and honor roll in the other 2. Bradley's professional athlete inspiration is Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills because he returned to NFL football following an on-field cardiac arrest where he had to receive CPR and AED treatment. I remember that. That was really scary. Bradley sees him as an inspiration as he works hard to get back to his previous skill level and beyond in basketball. And Bradley has attended the fall excursion 3 times, including this year, which we just got back from. So maybe we'll get to talk a little bit more about that. And together as a family, they advocate for vulnerability, courage, and integrity as they navigate this crucible, as opposed to inaccurately insisting that they are brave, fearless, or strong. They're scared shitless and showing up anyway. And I love that and almost feel like we should have made that the title of today's episode, Scared Shitless and Showing Up Anyway, because I feel like that is an inspiration all by itself. So welcome, Karra and Bradley. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad that you're here and that you've come to talk with us.
Thank you for having us. Good evening, Karra.
Hello.
Yes. Well, good evening, other Karra and Bradley. And I've just let Glenda back in. I think she got, no, there are 2 Glendas now with us. This is amazing. Well, welcome, Glenda, as well. Thank both of you for joining us, too.
Hi, well, thank you so much for that introduction, Karra. I'm so excited for this talk. Why don't, while I get a little more settled, you take it away, and then we can talk to Karra and Bradley. I'm so excited.
Will do. I am super excited about this too, and so glad that you were able to join us. Glenda was specially requested as a co-host by Bradley because we all got to hang out at the excursion this year and had a fantastic time, and I'm so glad that we get back together and chat again. So I kind of wanted to say, first of all, it was awesome to get to see y'all at the excursion again. Karra and Bradley, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you did at the excursion this year and why you keep coming back? You're some of our star attendees, I think.
Me first? Okay, Bradley says me first. I'll tell you first kind of how I got there the first time, which was in 2021. That was when we were in North Carolina. So the first event I attended in the atheist secular community was the Reason Rally, the first one. But I went with local friends of mine. I didn't meet anybody. And I didn't attend another event until Cincinnati American Atheists. And that's when I started to meet people and make friends. And I kind of did the 2021 excursion on a whim. I went by myself. I didn't know who was going to be there and kept coming back because of the amazing people I met and the community and the friendship and the fellowship that I established there.
Yeah.
What about you, Bradley? Because I drag you there probably. What keeps you coming back?
The amazing times I have. I met a lot of cool people like you and Glenda. It's pretty cool for the kids. Go on nature walks and awesome.
Well, yeah, and I have to brag on you and the other kids that participated in the Camp Quest programming this year at the excursion. Y'all definitely won the scavenger hunt by about 1.5 miles and produced some pretty cool photos and descriptions of us for some of the plant and animal and insect species that y'all found out there. That was pretty cool. I hope y'all get to come back and do that again. And I want to participate next time, but I'm pretty sure I won't be able to compete with some of the stuff y'all found.
Bradley
Especially
also
the spiders.
Bradley found a baby rattlesnake this time, which was, we were all very impressed. I was very impressed.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on. And this is kind of a two-part question, I guess. First for Karra and then for Bradley. Karra, you mentioned, or I guess I mentioned when I was introducing you, that you are a nearly lifelong atheist. What do you mean by that? And do you still feel the need to recover from religion? And if so, how so?
Yeah, what I mean by that is my parents were never married and lived separately. And my father was like technically a Catholic, but a Catholic who, attended like midnight mass on Christmas Eve and like Easter, kind of that kind of thing. And then my mother was raised Catholic, but she became like more non-denominational, I would say, as time went on. I went to church here and there. I learned the Bible and stuff like that, but nothing like most of the people I've met through RfR. I was young. I was like 11 or 12 when I started thinking about things, like especially as I was learning more stuff in school, like science stuff. And I just decided that it just doesn't make sense. When one thing falls apart, it all falls apart from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't have religious trauma, which is good. I have lots of other kind of trauma, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, I don't have religious trauma. I don't really have to recover from religion. Some embarrassment, maybe.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you don't have to recover from that, but I'm also glad that you're a part of this community. We love having you. And I'd also like to hear from Bradley. What are your thoughts about being non-religious? You've obviously grown up in a non-religious household. Do you have any thoughts on what it's like to not be religious in a society that is primarily religious? And do you use that term? Do you say that you're an atheist or something else? How does that feel to you?
I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. It's a bit hard knowing that like 85% of the world is Christians, but the country. But
Feels like the world sometimes.
Yeah, I do with it.
Yeah. How do you deal with it? Is there anything that helps you kind of feel any kind of way about it?
No, not really.
Fair. All right. Well, let's go into a little bit more of kind of serious topic. We are beyond relieved, Bradley, that you're doing so much better this year. And congratulations, by the way, on all of the academic and athletic achievements that I embarrassed you with at the beginning of the show by telling everyone. But that is freaking amazing. So good job. I want to ask you, first of all, how do you manage all that? But yeah, let me actually start with that. How did you do that? How did you achieve that? Not only just doing those to start with, but while you were going through treatment. My goodness, how do you do it? What's your secret?
Not really a secret, but I just try my best. I really like basketball. I've been doing it for a long time, and I just didn't want to give up on it, so I just kept going even when it was hard.
Awesome. That is awesome advice, and I commend you for it. That's amazing. Well done. And I'm just so pleased that you've done so well, and you're amazing, and you're an inspiration. So let me just start and end with that. And on top of that, we've talked a little bit about how y'all are not religious, and you've been going through this pretty serious, intense medical situation that we're so glad you're doing better. But something I was wondering about is you mentioned a few minutes ago that it kind of feels like almost everybody in the world is religious or Christian, and that's certainly the case here in the United States where we live. How did that make you feel when you were sick and when you were recovering? If people said religious things to you, like that were praying for you or thanking God when you were doing better?
It wasn't my favorite, but I respected it. It's their way of saying, like, hope you get better. So I didn't take it in the worst way, but I wasn't a huge fan of it.
That's fair.
When somebody expressed those beliefs to you, did you ever say that actually I'm an atheist? I mean, I couldn't imagine an adult telling a child going through chemotherapy, like, "I'll pray for you," and then the kid going, "Actually, I don't believe in God." Like, I,
No,
I just wanted to know if you had any interesting, if you ever did that, gave a little sassy retort and what the reaction was.
no, I haven't.
Darn.
Fair. Bradley is a very polite person.
Gail says his mama did.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that. Karra, what's your experience with that kind of thing?
Karra, you and I talked about this at the excursion, and roughly what I said was it depends. And I want to say why it depends. It depends on who it's coming from, and it depends if they're doing anything else other than praying. I am an only parent. It's just Bradley and me, and cancer is a financial ruin. It's not just the cost of the healthcare in and of itself. You know, living in the hospital is expensive. You're paying for your, in our case, our apartment or your home, but you have to live at the hospital and you don't have a kitchen, and so on and so forth. So there were people who threw me $5 or $10 on GoFundMe or my Zelle or whatever. And the reason that those donations, particularly those small donations, were so meaningful is because what that said to me is like, I have nothing to give you, but here's a few bucks anyway. And I was so grateful for that. But the prayer hands emoji, or I'll be praying for you, and like that's it. And it's coming from someone from high school or something who can't be bothered to do anything else. Like that is what frustrates me. I agree with Bradley when it's coming from a sincere place and it's people who are helping you in other ways. They're checking in on you or bringing food to the hospital or whatever it is. Like that's fine. It is not a secret in the local pediatric cancer community that I am an atheist.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm super curious, are you with Karra in the pediatric cancer, what a horrible concept, but in the pediatric cancer community, are you connected with any other parents and children who are also non-believers? Were you able to find someone to commiserate or connect with? Or Bradley, did you connect with any other kids who were also had pretty intense illnesses who were non-believers?
No, but me and my cousin, we joke around about how like stupid God sounds.
Which cousin is that?
Barrett.
Barrett? My nephew's first name is Barrett, just so it's not confusing.
Is his last name also Barrett?
No, he has his father's last name. So yeah, my answer is also no. I don't ask, but I'm Facebook friends with a few. I'm friends in real life with a few as well. And I haven't seen anybody that I'm talking about not say like, thank you, God, or God is so good, which is just baffling to me when your kid has cancer. I can't grasp it. I can't.
Yeah, the idea that someone could think that some all-powerful God both caused this and then helped make it a tiny bit better despite all of the cost, and then to say thank you for that is just bizarre to me as well. I don't understand the thought process, but whatever. So
yeah, that's them.
yeah, if that helps people, I'm glad for them that it helps them. I hope that people do think a little bit about how maybe that wouldn't be helpful to someone that doesn't have that same way of thinking as they do. So hopefully people will maybe consider that. Also, I love that this kitty is in this shot with us. That is an extremely cute kitty.
She does not stop cuddling. You'd think we never pet her, but we always pet her.
Well, she's amazing. Okay, so I would love to know then, you kind of touched on this already, Karra, but I'd like to hear also from Bradley too. What kind of support or help from friends or family or just other random people did you find to be the most helpful while you were going through all of this?
This does touch on my previous answer. I do want to say I have seen the absolute best in humanity. People gave freely and often to my GoFundMe or sent me a Zelle or whatever, and they didn't ask what religion I follow, if any. They didn't ask if I was a Democrat or Republican, anything like that, my sexual orientation. I want to be absolutely clear that there is no doubt that many, many religious people have given me money after this cancer diagnosis, and I thank them for that, absolutely, and everybody. And that, first of all, was a huge help. I have seen some criticisms of, and I don't want to get into this topic, but I do want to mention it because it's on my mind. Charlie Kirk's widow being concerned with money. I don't know how true that is. I'm really not following that story. But I do want to say that the day after Bradley was diagnosed, my second concern was money. Day 2, right? I applied for SSI the day after he was diagnosed. So people shouldn't assume what they're going to feel like in tragedy or think that someone's not grieving because they're focused on money or whatever it is, or they dare smile or whatever. So people who helped me financially were a big help. A lot of the people in the secular community, I would say percentage-wise, not total, but percentage-wise, more people in the secular community gave, right? I had friends that brought food to the hospital who couldn't give me money, and that's totally fine. As you mentioned, I'm in recovery from substance use disorder. I go to meetings, secular meetings, Smart Recovery, and SOS, which is Secular Organizations for Sobriety. And that group, it's substance use disorder focused, but obviously a lot of things affect substance use disorder. So I was able to talk about what was going on. I went to meetings when Bradley was in the hospital. I left to go to meetings that kept me sane. A lot of support from local organizations. There are lots of groups for the kids, and Bradley can talk about those locally, and we are so very grateful for them. My family, I have a big family. I'm the youngest of 5. My family dropped everything. An uncle flew in from Guatemala. My aunt flew in from California when Bradley was initially diagnosed. And certainly a lot of the community here in the secular community. Yeah, I also want to say I'm not defending Charlie Kirk or his, I don't know really much about them, but I'm specifically talking about you cannot tell how much a person is grieving because they're concerned about money or whatever. They look happy. I have a picture of Bradley in the PICU, the pediatric ICU, when he was in liver failure, and I'm leaning over his bed smiling because I was making a joke about me having the better liver than Bradley because
Right. I'm glad you pointed that out because, again, I'm not defending it either. I have my own very big personal feelings about those 2 people, and that's not, but people pointing out like, oh, well, she was seen smiling afterwards, although she's not actually grieving. And come on, y'all, it's 2025. We know better than this. Like, grief is not linear. That's not how it works. You can be laughing like moments after getting the most devastating news of your life. It's just not how it works. So a little more care and compassion and nuance. Come on.
Dare I say empathy would be in order.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, and, I think it's really important that you brought that up. Kind of 2 things. One, first of all, that, being able to laugh and smile and have humor and joy is still something that should be available to you while you're going through something difficult. In fact, for some people, that may be one of the most helpful healing things that they can have. Why should we tell people they're not allowed to laugh or smile if they're going through something difficult? But also the part about finances too. A lot of people have been saying in the chat while we're talking right now that it's just an additional layer of tragedy that people are saddled with, such a financial burden when they're going through a health situation in the healthcare system that we currently have. So I'm glad you brought attention to both of those things. I would love to also hear from Bradley. Was there anything that helped you in particular when you were going through treatment or when you were feeling really sick? Was there anything that made you feel better or kind of gave you some hope for the future?
Morphine.
Amazing. I had a really bad shoulder injury one time, and when they gave me morphine, that also made me feel better about life, the universe, and everything. So I get where you're going with that.
He's my child. We don't need a DNA test. Clearly, I forgot something really important. I'm hoping Bradley will have more to say. There is a great psychosocial team locally at the hospital in the cancer clinic where Bradley gets treatment. They have a pediatric oncology psychologist. She comes to our home. So it's like, we have so many appointments. It's just like one less thing that we have to deal with. They have social workers, child life specialists. Bradley and I are both in therapy separately, and then we see a family therapist. So that, I remember being on the phone with my therapist in the hospital, and we weren't doing anything productive, but just having her on the phone for 45 minutes once a week helped. It really did. And then there's a lot of children's programming. Bradley, you can mention a few things for Dr. Karra.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular from the children's programming that was, particularly helpful for you?
They're asking about like the children's programming. So like Camp Good Days, Guys Doing Things, like what you were also interviewed on about the news, stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely like connecting with people that have the same thing as me. Maybe not the same thing, but something similar to it. And doing fun activities, getting to know other people helps a lot.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you were able to participate in that. That sounds like really important programming. I have a friend who volunteers to do some kinds of services where they go and put on like events and shows, and they even do like costume parties and things, not costume parties, but like they'll dress up in costumes and have kind of fun things to do at the hospital while you're having to stay there for a long time. Did y'all have anything like that while you were in the hospital for long term?
Not exactly like that, but there are
Yeah.
things. Professional athletes come, and I want to speak on that, Karra. Speaking for myself and myself only, if you would have told me 2 years ago, before I knew Bradley had cancer, that those type of things in the hospital are going to make any kind of difference when your kid has cancer, I would have laughed at you. I would have argued with you. And when I say that stuff truly makes a difference, that is not cliche, or maybe it is, but it's true. It really is. Those smiles that you can find in between tears and just absolute horror really matter, and they matter immensely. Bradley had visits by at least one Buffalo Bills player, not DeMar Hamlin.
Only one.
Only one. Rough. And people, they'll do like dinner, local organizations will drop off dinners for the families there, and all that stuff really, really, really matters.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad that there's something people can do, and that things that people are doing are bringing little bits of joy into your life when you're dealing with something so terrible. I'm really glad you had that.
That sounds wonderful. I didn't, the dropping off dinners. I love to cook, and I'm sure that you got to just let a rando come in and give you food. I mean, there's probably background checks and other things you have to do, but I would love to be involved. I was in the hospital for a while, at a children's hospital for a while after an injury. And as we all know, if you spend any time in a hospital, notorious, the worst food you've ever had to endure in your life. So being able to get a home cooked meal and just have that delivered, that's really wonderful. An example of like community coming together. So I'm definitely going to look to see if I can do something like that in my area.
Yeah, I would really, really recommend it. And yeah, Bradley won't even eat the hospital food there, which is like, and this is not a complaint of Bradley, but it was an added expense, because had he eaten the hospital food, it would have been covered by his insurance. And again, not a criticism of Bradley, but yeah, just another added expense. Yeah, definitely your local hospital. Giving blood, please give blood. Bradley has needed many blood transfusions. You can get on a bone marrow registry, you swab your cheek, and you're put in a database. If any kid or regular person were to need a bone marrow transplant and you're a match, they find you. And those small things are how we survive in 2025. Mm-hmm. And your mom too.
Yeah. And those are all things that we can do as secular people that are actually helping people who are going through medical situations, that are not sending thoughts and prayers, right? Like those are real actions that save people's lives. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and always pray in private thing. Like if you are out there, and I know so many people who are doing the Lord's work as they see it, and those people are in my corner. I want them in my corner. It's the people that are only offering prayers and are doing nothing else that I have an issue with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a really important distinction that you made earlier too. Like it's not in and of itself a bad thing if someone says, "Oh, I'm going to pray for you." Great. Thank you for the sentiment that you're providing. And what are you doing to actually help? And these are concrete ways that people can actually help. So thank you for bringing those up. And, thinking about that, I'm kind of wondering, a lot of people, or I've heard some people say, at least, let's put it that way, that sometimes when you're in, like, people will oftentimes make this sort of really tired phrase like, "Oh, there are no atheists in foxholes." And if you're in a really scary situation, that's when you're going to suddenly decide that you want to have a God belief, or maybe you're going to try to pray your way out of a situation that seems really terrifying or hopeless. And I'm wondering if that ever happened to you. Did you ever feel like, "Oh, maybe now I'm going to start praying, or I now am going to become religious because I'm dealing with this kind of existential crisis or an actual threat to life"? Did that happen for either one of y'all?
Why don't you go first, Bradley? Because I definitely have like a longer.
No.
You can just say that.
No. Fair. Any further thing to say about that? Any reason why? Why didn't you decide to pray or join a church or something like that? Why didn't that seem like it would help?
It's not gonna do anything. You're just spitting out words.
Fair. I agree with you. I would rather do things that would help if I was in a dangerous situation, like, medicine.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that. Definitely. Yeah, I'm going to share something very vulnerable and I'll give a little bit of context. So, Bradley, as you said, has a B cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and that is the most curable pediatric cancer that there is. It's between a 90 and 95% remission rate after 5 years, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, in Bradley's case, Bradley had chemotherapy induced necrotizing pancreatitis. On a population level, this particular medication, the benefits outweigh the risks. You can't predict who is going to get pancreatitis from that. Unfortunately, Bradley was one of those people. He got very, very sick with sepsis, liver failure, and necrotizing pancreatitis. The combination of those things, he had a over 85% mortality rate, and he was in the PICU for a bit and then in the hospital. He was in the hospital a bit over 5 weeks total, including the PICU stays. And I remember very, very clearly being in Bradley's room. So he was admitted from the ED to the PICU. Then they sent him back to the oncology floor. But then the next day, I was in Bradley's room and there's a knock at the door. And it's 4 attending physicians, not like 4 medical students and 4 residents. It's 4 attending physicians. And like, that's not what you want to see, them to come into your hospital room and say, can we go talk in the conference room? You don't want to go in the conference room ever. And they said that they had been doing some tests and they got the results and they know what's going on. And Bradley's liver is failing. He's likely going to need a transplant and we're going to have to airlift you to Pittsburgh, which is the closest pediatric transplant hospital to Buffalo. My sister was there in the room with me and I said, I can't be here right now. I'm going to go back to Glenda. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to go back to Bradley's room. And on my way from the conference room to Bradley's hospital room, I don't know, maybe 50 feet, felt like 2 seconds and 2 decades at once, the walk. And I thought 2 things. I thought, I am going to stay sober if Bradley dies, because that's what Bradley would want. And I thought, I wonder if he has any usable organs. That is what I thought in that moment. I didn't think, please God, because Bradley's right. I mean, Bradley is very straightforward. What does that do? That's not it. It just isn't. I don't know if I envy people. I don't know if envy is the right word, but I understand it. I certainly understand it. I certainly understand why people do cling to religion. I don't want to say I don't judge anybody for it, but I don't judge that in and of itself.
No, not at all. And I mean, I've even, having never in my life dealt with anything even remotely that serious, I've found myself on occasion, if you're in a really bad situation or really scared or feeling helpless about something, I've even felt myself kind of fall back into that habit of, oh, and now we pray because there's nothing else that I know of to do. But then, of course, I catch myself and think, no, actually, that is also not going to do anything. Let me think of something else. And I think Bradley said it really well. Actually, no, why would I do that? It doesn't do anything. That is an excellent perspective.
Yeah, Bradley did want me to throw a shout out. When we were on the oncology floor before we got sent back to the PICU, there was a particular resident physician and the attending physician who is not Bradley's normal attending physician. People rotate in the hospital, right? He told me that Bradley was getting better, the attending physician did, and said anytime somebody leaves the ICU and goes to the regular floor, that means they're doing well. But the resident physician, knowing Bradley from before, said, something's wrong here. And if anybody knows anything about medicine, it's very hierarchical. And this particular resident physician told his boss to fuck off, essentially, ordered the test that Bradley needed and got Bradley back in the PICU where he ended up making a full recovery. Those residents thereafter went on strike. Bradley and I joined them on the picket line. The news interviewed us, and Bradley wanted to just throw a shout out to Dr. Randy, who we credit with saving his life.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, really, just really inspiring, really wonderful human being. That's like a private telling a general to fuck off in the military, right? Like, he put his neck on the line.
Wow. I'm going to have to update my thought process around when people say thoughts and prayers. And I think if we'll know how about, medicine and thanking the doctors and science, but also thanking people for having the courage to stand up to social systems that are unjust or settings and hierarchies that don't allow people to make the right decisions and standing up anyway and saying, I'm going to put my career or my reputation on the line to do the right thing to help somebody because I would rather do that than participate participate in a system that will pay me a good wage as long as I keep my mouth shut.
And potentially kill a then 11-year-old young boy.
Right. It's literally a life or death situation with children. I don't think the stakes could be higher. Shout out to, you say Dr. Andy? What was their name?
Dr. Andy, yeah.
Hell yeah, Dr. Andy. We love you. Shout out to Dr. Andy for advocating.
I'm going to see if I can get the news link and throw it in the chat.
Oh yeah, we would
Yes.
love to see that.
Yes, please share that with us if you can.
My joke.
Oh, Bradley, did you say you had something to share?
No, I want my mom to tell it.
Okay.
Yeah, Bradley referenced morphine earlier, and he was on a continuous morphine drip when he was in the hospital, and he said some funny stuff. People come in the hospital about 1 million times.
Please tell me you have video.
I don't have video. I have pictures, unfortunately. He said, "Is everyone in here a fan of waking people up from their naps?" Like, very matter-of-factly, very funny.
Oh my goodness. That is so hospital.
Yes. You gotta tell one, Bradley. I don't remember them all.
I don't know.
We'll think of them.
Yeah, maybe so just state dependent.
Chemo brain. Yep. Really good people.
Fair.
Really good doctors, good nurses. Most of them. Absolutely. Really human genius. Gratitude is a big thing for me. I actually was telling a social worker at the cancer clinic today. She told me something that really made a difference about a year ago. And I said, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I felt that you really saw me, and I just wanted to say thank you.
I thought of one.
Ooh, what is it? Did you think of it, Bradley?
So one time the doctors came in and my mom was trying to sleep and she like murmured, "Oh, I'm trying to take a nap." And then the next time they came in, I screamed at the people, "My mom is trying to sleep."
That's true.
Amazing. I love that. I
Bradley,
love that you.
We love that. That's called advocating for somebody else that you care about. And we do that here.
Yes. Excellent. I love that. Like, you could have made it all about you, but you didn't. You were worried about your mom getting rest. Thank you. Amazing. And I see that we have the link in the chat, so we'll look at that a little bit later too, and people can click on that if they would like. I would also love to know, Bradley, is there anything that you wish people knew about what it's like to go through such a serious illness and treatment process as a kid? Like anything you wish other kids knew or other adults knew about what that was like?
It's definitely hard. There's going to be some ups and downs, but you got to stay positive. Keep joking around.
I love that.
Yeah, I would like to talk more specifically about like the kids. Bradley has made some comments, and I'm hoping he'll have some input about his friends. I mean, no one can truly understand unless you're going through it, but that's not what I mean when I say understand. I mean, like, having like a concept, grasping it, the nature and the extent of the situation as best one can. I know Bradley has made comments, and his friends have made comments like, "Oh, why weren't you in school today?" And Bradley's like, "Well, I had a lumbar puncture." And not that I expect the 12-year-olds to like know what that is, right? But they just see Bradley as Bradley. They forget that he's going through that. He still takes chemo mostly at home. It's mostly oral now, but he gets lumbar punctures like once every 85 days, and we have to go in the clinic once a month, and it's a lot. You look at him now versus last year when he was at the excursion and bald and pale and much skinnier than he is now. He just looks like an everyday kid, and it's easy to forget that he still is undergoing chemotherapy treatment for cancer.
That's a really good point, because you think about, obviously, Bradley, you had to go through a learning process, as anybody does if they get an illness, to learn about what does this mean and what's the treatment going to be like. But was that kind of weird for you to have to explain that to your friends, or how did that work? Were you able to explain it to your friends in a way that they could understand, and did you feel like they got it?
I definitely tried to, but I don't think they got it.
I would
That's tough. And kind of along those lines, we just had a question from one of our folks in the audience who you met at the excursion, who says they've been wondering for quite a long time, how do children who don't believe in an afterlife like heaven or hell or something like that think about the concept of death? And this person said that as a religious adult, losing their belief in heaven was kind of a disturbing adjustment for them. Did you think about that at all when you were sick? Did you think about the possibility of dying and the possibility of what happens after that?
Yeah.
Do you want to sit on that for a minute? Because I have something that's relevant
Sure.
to that answer. So when Bradley was 4, my mother died at age 61 unexpectedly. And I made a very deliberate choice to tell Bradley that grandma was dead. And that means that we're never going to see her again.
Mhm.
And that was important to me because, first of all, children are concrete thinkers. They're smarter than we give them credit for, me included sometimes. I'm working on that. You cannot, well, literally you can, but you should not be telling a child that their loved one is in a better place and we're going to see them again later. I think that's ridiculous and cruel, and that was very important for me to do even when Bradley was 4. So he has grown up in this kind of worldview. So, like, what were you thinking,
Yeah.
Bradley, like, when you were like really, really sick? In Bradley, in kind of getting into this more emotional topics, I think is really important. We've talked a lot about resilience and post-traumatic growth, and that's really important to talk about. But I don't want to sit here and pretend that this was instantaneous. It happened overnight. It happened over a year and then longer. And this did break us. Make no mistake, this broke us. It didn't keep us broken forever, but it did absolutely break us.
Yeah, it's a really powerful way to describe that. And I know it is a really heavy topic. I wonder, Bradley, do you remember what your mom just described when you were 4? Do you remember having that conversation about what death is and what it means when someone passes away? Okay. And did that help you at all when you were really sick? Did you think about that conversation, or did that influence or impact how you felt about it when you were sick?
No, I didn't think of it. I didn't remember at that time, but
That's fair. You had kind of a lot going on at that time. Was there anything that you did think about when you were really, really sick and kind of wondering how it was going to turn out?
no, because I didn't really know what I had. I couldn't really feel anything, from what
That's
I
fair.
remember at least.
That's fair. That's fair.
So Bradley got really sick, and how we got to the ED was Bradley had a fever. Bradley has a Metaport in his chest for chemo, and if he gets a fever, he has to get checked. There can be an infection of the Metaport. So after that happened and Bradley recovered or was on his road to recovery at home, when he gets sick again, like even if it's just with a cold, like there was one time I remember that I said that we have to go in, meaning like we have to go in to get checked, and Bradley said through tears that he didn't want to die. Because the last time he had a fever, he almost did. So now it's like associated with that, and it's rough.
Yeah, that's terrifying. And that kind of brings up a question I wanted to ask y'all about, that we talked a little bit about this at the excursion, but I thought it was really great how you phrased this in the introductory information that you sent to us, where it kind of said, neither of y'all really like this idea of being described as brave or fearless or strong, but in fact, being scared shitless and showing up anyway. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that. Why is it not really meaningful to say, oh, you're really brave, good job, you just came out of this terrifying experience and you're so strong and brave and everything like that? What is a better way, do you think, to describe that experience, a more realistic framing of it?
Yeah, Karra, if I could, I'd like to let Bradley share his thoughts and then let him go.
Yeah.
I can certainly stay on, and this is probably my most soapboxy topic in this space. Yeah, I can absolutely ask questions. I have big feelings about what you just said. It's just bullshit. Sorry, Bradley.
I was scared shitless.
Yeah, so whatever you have to say on that topic, and you'll say goodbye, and I'll stay on, and you can brush your teeth or whatever.
What do you think is wrong with people saying it that way? Like, oh, you're fearless, you just survived all this and you're fine and you were so strong and not even afraid. Why is that not really accurate, do you think?
It's just not true, If someone says, oh, you have cancer, you're going to be scared. You're going to be crying. It's not an easy experience. I was throwing up every day. It's hard.
I was so impressed when both of you mentioned that to me, when we talked about this before the show, because I have some friends that have had cancer diagnoses as well. And this idea that people would say that you're not afraid or that you're not really having an extreme emotional experience, it seemed almost insulting to me to say that to someone that's going through something so extreme.
It is insulting.
Okay, that makes sense. What do you think, Bradley? What would be something better for people to say to someone who's going through that kind of experience?
I don't know. Maybe here to talk if you want, or something like that.
That must be so hard for you. I can't imagine what that's like.
So letting you know that they're there for you and they're there to be your friend and to support you, but not making assumptions about how you're feeling. Is that right? That's really helpful information to know. I know a lot of times people maybe don't know what to say because they haven't experienced it and maybe they accidentally say the wrong thing. But this seems really important to me for people to kind of understand, like, what is something that is going to be more helpful versus something that they might accidentally say that's harmful. And it sounds like this thing that people might say, oh, you're fearless. Oh, you're so resilient. You're doing so great. Maybe that's not really helpful, even if they meant it to be.
Yeah, I really try not to assume malice. It depends on the person, right? So, like, if you don't know what to say and, like, you're my best friend, just say that. I don't know what to say right now, but I see you and I hear you and I will sit with you. Let's get rid of Bradley and I'll continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please, Bradley, we don't want to keep you up late. You have lots of honor roll academics and sports achievements to do tomorrow, which is far more than what most of us are going to do tomorrow. So by all means, please head out. Thank you so much for joining us, Bradley. It was such a pleasure to talk with you, and you have a fantastic sense of humor. I'm so glad you joined us. Thank
Bradley,
you.
we love you so much, and you've really honored us with sharing your story. We so appreciate you being willing to come here and talk about this really, really, really tough subject. Fuck cancer.
Yes.
It sucks.
Yeah, fuck cancer. Thank you, Bradley. Go to bed. Love you.
You go to bed.
I will.
Night.
I wanted to, I feel like with the whole, like, you're brave or whatever, it's really difficult to divorce American culture from, it's so endemic to our societal attitudes of using inspiration porn to, like, motivate ourselves. And I honestly, my hot take is I think that if we had a different healthcare system, we wouldn't necessarily have the inspiration porn that we do when it comes to cancer survivors and illness survivors. But while that attitude may be helpful for some folks, like being the cancer warrior and being told you're strong and brave, that may be helpful for some people. But of course, it's not a one size fits all. And I appreciate you speaking up and being against. We've spoken about inspiration porn before on a previous RfRx. I think it was, we had a guest who spoke about autism and just being used that way.
Yeah, we did. And this idea that you're just like someone's example to tell other people about, oh, I know this person that went through this thing. Now let me make my big giant point, and they're kind of a pawn in my story.
Inspiration porn is certainly a huge aspect. And Glenda, you and I talked about this in Minnesota. It's especially egregious, in my opinion, in the pediatric cancer space. And it comes from, and this is not a judgment so much as, or I think I'm better than, it is, I believe, the parents and the children are victims of the systems that Glenda was talking about as well. But I would say over 95% of write-ups tragically after a child has died, or in their GoFundMe when they're living, just posts saying so-and-so has never complained. And it's just not true. Bradley has the most amazing psychologist. She is this short, wonderful Irish woman, actually a person who believes in Jesus, but not in like a way that I've ever seen anybody believe in Jesus before. Certainly one of the good ones. And she agrees with me, and we bitch about it all the time. Let me go on the record and say that Bradley has complained about his diagnosis. I've complained about Bradley's diagnosis. What are we doing here? Yes, he's complained. There is this perception, how I see it, is that we can't be grateful for all the love and help and support that we've received if we are at the same time complaining, and that's just not true. I am so very grateful for all of the help, and it's been a lot. People from different continents just amazing. I've seen the absolute best in humanity in this process. And I hate that this is my life. My son has cancer. These are separate things. My son is not a warrior. He's 12. I have to remind him to put on deodorant, okay? He's not a warrior. I hate that fucking word. I hate it. It is ubiquitous, especially in the pediatric space, and I cannot stand it. My son is a child.
Thank you
Sorry,
for
go
saying that. That is, I feel like, such an important point. We've talked about this idea of warrior culture in other contexts on this show before, but that is mind-boggling to me that that has found its way into pediatric care
Right.
spaces as well. I mean, I don't want to say it's an oxymoron. Like, yes, children can be very strong and go through difficult things, and certainly, but why does your
Using
child need to be a warrior? Why,
warrior,
why can we not
yeah,
just call things what they are and say this is an
yeah.
extremely difficult situation that we're surviving?
That language to
in
describe children is, it's straight up gross to me. Like, I wouldn't want to associate warrior or fighter. It's like, they're a child, they're a child. We don't put other adult behaviors onto children for a reason, because it's inappropriate. This type of adult behavior onto a child, fighting, warrior, combat, is like, ew, get it away from me. And it also, like, I can't imagine the impact that that would have on the sick child themselves. Of like, the body is so fragile and you're hurting and you're in pain and people are telling you you're a fighter. It's like, it doesn't feel like I'm fighting. It feels like I'm dying. So I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I would think some children would struggle with feelings of guilt or blame of like, oh, I'm not fighting hard enough, because now this descriptor is on me as a warrior.
Mhm.
So if I get more sick, it's because I wasn't fighting hard enough.
Right. This reminds me so much of the narrative that we kind of alluded to earlier about, sometimes in religious circles, there's this sort of implication, if it's not stated outright, that, oh, well, if you pray hard enough, you should get better. If you're believing the right way, you'll get better. And sometimes people feel a sense of inadequacy. If, oh, did I not have enough faith? Did I not pray the right way? And I get that same feeling from this warrior narrative, like, oh, did I not fight hard enough? Am I not a successful warrior? It's not a battle, it's an illness.
Yeah, Bradley gets needles stuck in his chest frequently. If he wants to cry and kick and scream when that happens, so be it. Would it be better if he could just sit there and take it? It'd be easier, but like sometimes he screams and cries and sometimes he doesn't. We have a particular nurse that he is comfortable with, and we try to get her when she's not available. He has more anxiety. He needs Ativan when he has lumbar punctures, which is fine. My assessment is that we are uncomfortable with children having cancer. And that is a way for us to tell ourselves that they got it. And I made a post on Facebook kind of along the same lines recently. I don't want to appear like I'm coming from a place where I'm holier than thou or better than anybody or morally superior, because the only reason I learned these lessons were because I was forced to. And it took a long time. Again, it didn't happen overnight. And also, if you don't know what to do or say, just go sit with your friend on their couch. Even if you don't say a word and it's awkward, or they're crying, or they're talking about something seemingly irrelevant, show up. They're working backwards from there's nothing you can do to take their kid's cancer away. That's great. We all know that. That doesn't mean ignore them. Just show up, sit with them, go do their dishes. Just be there. Just show up.
Wow. Man, I really appreciate that you said that, because that almost makes me think when people are saying things like, we're praying for you or whatever it is, they know there's nothing they can do and they're trying to not recognize that as reality. It's like they're wanting to imagine that there is something they can do to take that away when in fact there isn't. And I love that you just gave people a roadmap to do something else instead that is actually a real thing. Go sit with someone and do their dishes. Go bring some food. Go just be a human being that is a warm body next to this person and support them in that way. That's really great advice.
Yeah, Glenda said in the chat, literally and metaphorically, like David Klinge's wife, Adrian, when Bradley was diagnosed, I fucking love her too. I remember texting her saying something along the lines of like, I don't have any clean underwear. How many days in a row can I wear the same underwear, or like whatever it is? And she's like, I think 2 days is fine, but any more than that, either don't wear any or do your laundry, Karra, right? And it was like, it made me laugh, first of all, because it was funny. But also, the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of my home. I was a mess. I relapsed. I didn't mention that. And the people who sat with me in that horror when I was unrecognizable, I will never forget that. I will never, ever forget that. And saying, I don't know what to say, but being there, I can confidently say that that means more than having the perfect script.
That's really good to know and really helpful. I know so many people, myself included, I know I've been that person that doesn't know what to say more than once when someone is going through a difficult diagnosis. And this is really good information for people like myself who, like y'all who have been on this show several times, have heard me say more than once, I need a script, I need the conversation outline and the framework. Please tell me what to do. This is helpful. Thank you for telling us, because I know there are so many people that mean well and they say the wrong thing and they say something like, oh, I'm going to pray for you, or, whatever it is. And they didn't mean it maliciously, but it's not helpful. And it's really good to have actual helpful things that people can do. And that kind of leads me to wonder as well. Obviously, you have lived this personally and also as a social worker. I would love to hear from your expertise on this too. What do you think we're missing when it comes to support for individuals and families that are dealing with this kind of thing? What do we need more of to support people that are going through serious medical difficulties? And how can the secular community contribute to that?
That's a great question. I didn't have, and there wasn't one locally, I asked, an actual support group relative to pediatric illness or cancer. I'm not trauma Olympicsing by any means. I'm just saying that pediatric cancer is unique. Some of the parents that I've gotten to know talking to them agree. And I've even, one in particular, we've talked about the unwritten need to come across grateful at all times and to not complain. I would have loved a support group. My recovery groups were absolutely amazing, but that's not like what that's for. It was totally fine that I did that. And certainly other people, if their pet dies or a parent or something is going on in their life is what I'm trying to say. We bring that up, right? Because that does affect recovery. I would have liked a support group, but I would have gone definitely. My son is going to live, and it's important that people remember that that is still grief, that I am still grieving. Less and less as time goes on, but certainly the initial, not just the initial, when he got really, really sick, that is grief. And it is, again, not trauma Olympics, but a different kind of grief, because grief is usually talked about in terms of death. And I did feel awkward because I was grieving, certainly, in understanding that, yeah, you can't fix it. Like, you can't take his cancer away, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. There's lots that people could have done. And this is not a judgment. It's just an observation. People don't know what to do and they don't want to say the wrong thing. And in my opinion, like, I see, for example, like an organization raising money for like their kid's wheelchair, like whether it's GoFundMe or whatever it is, lots of comments saying, oh, this should be covered by insurance, or have you tried this organization? Don't do that. Give money or don't. If not, like, give a heart react and say bump for the algorithm or something. Like, don't. Either I've tried it or fuck you, I don't have time for that, right? Either give money or don't. If not, scroll on by.
So don't give unsolicited healthcare advice.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. I went to a psilocybin retreat in Colorado in November, which was delightful. Absolutely changed my life. But that kind of crowd, and this is a generalization, maybe like half of them were like, don't do chemo. I'm like, oh God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Good grief. Yes. Let's make that a blanket bit of advice if anyone's wondering. Don't give unsolicited healthcare advice. If you are not someone's medical provider, don't give healthcare advice. Let's just start there. Wow. Okay. That's actually really good information to know. I'm glad you mentioned that about how you benefited from some support groups, but could have benefited from some additional ones, maybe. And when you say that, do you mean support groups specifically for people who are dealing with grief or ongoing medical issues from a secular perspective? Or what specific type of support were you thinking of when you said that?
I would not have attended a religious support group. even if it was for parents of pediatric cancer patients. Because, for example, I'm in recovery. I don't go to AA. I can't stand it.
Oh, yeah.
I am not powerless over my substance use disorder. I feel very much empowered in my recovery. Any kind of support group run by the local organizations, and that doesn't mean that people aren't free to believe in whatever they believe in. It's just that that's not what we are using in the context of the group. Specifically for parents of pediatric cancer patients, it's a unique monster. There's a lot of shame. Bradley was complaining of muscle aches. He was getting sick with colds, flu, strep for a while before he was diagnosed. I've let go of shame. I've transferred that shame into guilt, which are two different things. It's important for people to know. He was playing basketball at the time, and I said something along the lines of, "Your team needs you, Bradley." And Bradley had cancer. And every parent has a story like that because you're not expecting it to be cancer, right? It's growing pains or whatever. And that was really hard for me to let go of. And I did. And I had great therapists, and psychedelic medicine certainly played a role. But having a space to talk about that shame is empathy, and someone saying me too is where shame goes to die. And it's so important because shame is very positively correlated with depression, substance use disorder, PTSD, and suicide. And yeah, getting rid of that shame is so very important towards recovery of anything.
Wow. I didn't really expect that that was where this conversation was going to go, but you're right. We
Neither.
hear that so much. I mean, it comes up all the time when we're talking about recovering from religion. Shame comes up so often. It seems like there's so many ways that that just permeates people's lives, whether you come from a religious background or if it's people coming to you with that being their religious background. It seems like shame is just thrust upon people in so many different ways when I don't think that's ever helpful. I was about to say when it's not helpful. I can't think of a time when that would be helpful at all. And I love that you were able to, as you said, transfer that away. But I really think you've made a good point here about the need for secular support for people going through, whether it's specifically pediatric cancer. It seems like actually you did say that that specifically would have been helpful, not just any particular or just grief in general or health issues, but that maybe there's a need for that specific area of support for people. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that is what I meant. And a couple of the moms and I have talked about that. I will say, and I've talked to some of the psychosocial team too, I will say that some of the feedback I got from the providers were that people are busy. There's a lot of appointments. At some point, people have to go back to work. They have other children. Thank my hysterectomy, I only have Bradley, right? I can't imagine what having another kid at home, especially by myself. There are other concerns other than just creating a support group. Like, people have to be able to get it. One thing that was tossed around was like having it at the clinic when people are there for appointments while their kids are whatever. But yes, that is what I meant specifically.
That's important information to know. And someone has just asked a really good question. Oh, it was Gail. Of course, it was a good question. Gail has asked, how has this experience affected your practice as a social worker, knowing what you know now?
I'm actually not practicing. I haven't returned to practice since Bradley was diagnosed. I have thought about this, and I can absolutely say I have a different perspective, a better perspective on life. I don't believe that this experience was destined. I don't believe anybody or any entity is driving it, but I know that it's made me a better person. Would I do it all over again? No. If I could press a button and stop it, yes. But I am not in a place where I can go back to the office right now. And the reason is because I'm not ready for someone to tell me that their life is over because they got a flat tire. And that is not me saying that I'm better than that person. As I said, I didn't know what I know until this happened. And it is also true that if somebody said to me that their life was over because they got a flat tire, I would just freak out. I just would. And I know that. I actually freaked out yesterday at Bradley's basketball game. This is middle school house league basketball. Parents are freaking out, and I had to get up and leave and just talk to someone and say they need to spend an hour at the hospital and learn what's important about life, because this ain't it.
Wow, that's really good thing for people to be aware of. I think get some perspective in your life. Good
Yeah,
grief.
some perspective, certainly. My empathy in general, and this is not necessarily as a social worker, but certainly it applies, has just increased exponentially, specifically to substance use disorder in relapsing after Bradley's diagnosis. I was in rehab within 6 or 7 weeks of his diagnosis, and I was in inpatient psych before that, like 2 weeks after. I mean, I went insane. Make no mistake, as I said, this broke me. It absolutely did. And that is fine. That is absolutely fine. Over the course of knowing that I had a substance use disorder problem, I stopped and started many, many times. What I noticed, Gail, the most is actually in substance use disorder meetings when people come in and they got a DWI or something or whatever it is, and they're focused on the criminal aspect of it instead of the larger part, which is their substance use disorder that is driving their DWI. And everybody else is in the room is getting frustrated and saying, stop focusing on what's going to happen to you in court. You have a substance use disorder, get help for that. And I'm sitting there like, that, you are me. And that's not what they need to hear. What they need to hear is, I see your job is very important to you. This situation must be so scary. And that's it. And then shut the fuck up.
Yes, this is such good advice that I try to tell myself, never miss a good opportunity to shut up. And I try to live by that, and I'm bad at living by that, but I make that my goal. So thank you for reminding us to do that. I know we're getting towards the end of our time, so I don't want to keep you too much later, but I do want to ask, someone else has asked, how can people support if they are not physically in person? If they know someone that's going through something like this or a difficult situation and they can't be there to sit down on the sofa right next to them or do their dishes, what can people do to support? Is there something people can do that would be helpful from a distance?
Well, we have couches in Buffalo. We don't have sofas.
Fair. I'm joining you from, well, I'm not joining you from Texas. I'm joining you from the Texas dialect, and fair. If they can't sit next to you on a piece of furniture.
I am giving you a hard time. I can absolutely answer this. Whatever kind of financial help you can give matters, even if it's $5. Do not be embarrassed. Do not feel ashamed to send $5 or $10. That is parking. That's lunch. I can almost guarantee you the person is going to receive that and be grateful for it. They are not thinking, you didn't give me enough money. I promise you that. And if they are, don't be friends with that person. The text messages I appreciated during these times were, hey, it's so-and-so. I'm thinking about you and Bradley. No need to respond. And I just to throw this out there, if you are in person and you're doing something, dropping off food, whatever it is, make sure it's in a container that they don't need to give back and that you're not expecting a thank you in response. They are thanking you, I promise. They are grateful for it, I promise. They don't have time to reach out to everybody individually, or even if maybe it's not time, maybe it's spoons, like mental capacity. Don't help someone and expect anything in response. Just help them. And as far as more of the distance thing goes, it depends on the relationship. So if Gail texted me and said, hey, I'm here if you need to talk, I would receive that. If it's someone from high school, and I use this example, who I haven't spoken with in 15 years and said, hey, Karra, I'm here if you need to talk. To me, that's just them dealing with their own, Karra's son has cancer and my son doesn't, and I feel weird about that. It depends on who it's coming from, but if it was someone I knew and who I actually do talk to, I would absolutely receive that, like, hey, when's a good time for us to chat? Phrase it in that, like, when's a good time for us to talk on the phone, instead of like, hey, I'm here if you need to talk.
So basically, don't make it about you. Make it about the person that needs your support.
Yes.
Okay. This is really good information. Thank you for sharing that with people. We're getting a lot of people that are asking that and appreciating that you're letting people know what they can do to support. And I know I said that this is the last question. And so this is the last question, part B. Along those same lines, is there anything else that people who are in mental health or healthcare fields could be doing better to support, or any organizations that are already doing that work to support that you want to give a shout out to?
No specific organizations, but I can give feedback on the providers that I've worked with. Bradley's psychologist, my therapist, who's a licensed mental health counselor, is to tell the truth. What I mean by that is my therapist had never worked with someone whose child had cancer before. She's been in the business for like 15 years. She's the director of the clinic that I go to. She's very experienced, but she told me, like, this is new for me. Like, let's talk about this. And Bradley's psychologist in particular, she'll just straight up tell me that she can't fix anything, which is really refreshing. And that's not her job. Her job is just to listen, really. And just when, for example, I remember very clearly cuddling with Bradley when he was bald and I was rubbing his bald head. And we were cuddling for 10 minutes, didn't really say anything, but then he turned over and said, "I miss my hair." And that just, my heart just sank into the Titanic. And then I have to go put that on my therapist. Bradley, as his mother, is absolutely putting that on me, and I want that from him. And I need to put that somewhere else too. And then the therapist has to put that somewhere else too. I know that as a social worker, but your job is so important there to just hold space. I know it sounds like a cliche, but that's really all you can do. Again, working backwards from, I can't take your kid's cancer away.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And that is the last question. I know we've kept you longer than we talked about, but I so appreciate you sharing these insights with us. And I know it's been really meaningful for other people. And before we go, I just want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to mention before we leave? And anybody that you want to give a shout out to, any resources or any kind of final thoughts that you want to leave us with about this topic?
If you're able, donate blood. Please do it. Become an organ donor. The bone marrow registry, if you just Google it, they mail you a kit. You swab your cheek. Chances are you're not going to get called. It's just a registry. Platelets are important to donate as well. There are things that we can do. I know it seems like maybe there aren't, but that's not true. There's a lot that we can do. And the secular community in particular just has been amazing throughout this going on 2 years in November. Just been amazing. Don't underestimate whatever a $25 DoorDash gift card. You know, I just sent a DoorDash gift card to my friend who just had a baby. That stuff matters. They call those little things, but they're not little. They're absolutely so meaningful to someone who is struggling.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really great advice. And thank you for sharing all of your insights with us this evening and sharing this really vulnerable story with us. I can't tell you how many people have been mentioning in the chat that this is really meaningful and helpful for them. And I know it will be meaningful and helpful for countless numbers of people that listen to this later or watch this later. Thank you for letting us learn from your experience that you unfortunately had to go through. And the rest of us can know better how to support people for it. So thank you for the work that you've done in turning this into something that can help other people. So, all the props to you. And if you need to head out, please feel free. If you want to stay and hang with us, please stay and hang with us as long as you would like. Totally up to you. But we'll go ahead and wrap up now. And I would love to actually hear from Gail. In fact, let's do that before we do our full wrap up. Gail, do you want to give us any comments on tonight's show? Some final wrap up thoughts?
Sure. First thing is, note to self, don't follow Karra and Bradley. Karra, that was incredible. Thank you for sharing all of that. I learned so much from you through this whole process, from being prickly about, well, why is Karra not responding back to my text, or why is she snappy? Because we're going, oh, whatever. I learned so much, and I consider myself knowledgeable about this kind of thing. I'm going to get choked up. And you have been patient with us and tried to teach us, and you're trying to show us and continue to do this. So keep being patient with us while we get it worked out, because, you know, I won't miss an opportunity to dump on religion, but religion teaches us a different kind of ethics. A religion teaches us this obedience piece and this formulaic piece and this horrible plan. Is there a plan? There's a plan, there's a reason, there's a purpose, and God ordained this, and he won't give you more than you can take, and God knows best. And we suck at, as we unpack and deconstruct, there are things that we think we are so proud of ourselves and we think we've done it, and then we haven't. And when things don't, and when we are in the process of learning those things and they don't follow what this pattern was that we're accustomed to, this religious pattern of, well, this is how one would behave, and then this person would say this thing, and then this is how the other person would behave. We're faced with, okay, maybe do I need to reflect on that? And the answer is yes. Yes, I needed to reflect on that. And so as I have watched you go through this and the different phases of it, I have learned so much from you. And I'm so deeply grateful for not just your patience, but for your continuing willingness to let us in on this instead of shutting us out because we're not doing it right, because we get stuck anyway. Anyway, rambling, Karra, from my own voice. Thank you for working with us and for being patient with us and for continuing to try to teach us, and for Bradley being the absolutely adorable person that he is. Last year at the end of the excursion, not this one, but a year ago, we were having a little debrief and we were asking for feedback. And one of the questions I asked was, we were going to talk about the food, and Glenda's there on her airplane seat, and she was the one that was in charge of the food. We said, what can we do differently on the food? What would anybody like? And from the back of the room, this 11-year-old voice said, steak. And so from then on, we have known that Bradley is a fan of steak, and we need to accommodate that. So he's just what a jewel. And the fact that this hasn't, I know it's affected him, Karra, but the fact that it hasn't destroyed him is a tribute to you and what you've done to try to teach him through this. This is fucking math. These things happen. Statistics happen. Sometimes little 12-year-old boys get hit by cars, and sometimes they get cancer, and sometimes they get lucky and they don't get any of that anyway. Woo. So thank you for helping with that. Okay, Karra with 1 R, thank you for giving me the moment. Karra with 2 R's, thank you for being our guest tonight. I'm so deeply grateful for what you've shared, and please express that to Bradley, and the emotional support pickle and Dino Nuggie will be in the mail tomorrow. Thanks.
I love that. Thank you, Gail. And thank you, Karra. And thank you, Bradley, who's gone to bed. And with that, let's go ahead and wrap up and head to the hang.